Greetings, citizens of the world. This is a message from Anonymous to the dictator Ebrahim Raisi of the Iranian government.
A 22-year-old woman this morning the army in Iran confronted enemies and put down a series of deadly protests, mostly led by women.
The say is Iran is a dictatorship, but is it? The answer to this question is not a simple yes or no. If it was, we would not have to make this video. To better answer this question, we first need to figure out what dictatorship is, and then look at Iran's political structure to find out if it is indeed dictatorial or something else entirely. If you want to find out what dictatorship defines, as you are going to get a headache, like we did, because the word in question has changed meaning a lot in history. So it is understandable that in our current political texts, there are a lot of complicated and various definitions for it, but for the sake of simplifying things, in this video, we are going with the one that everyone seems to agree on. A dictatorship is a form of government in which a single person or a small group of people have complete power and control over a country, with few to no limitations on them. And this particular form of government system has some distinct characteristics, such as the dictator typically assumes power through force, for example, a coup d'état or a revolution, and often maintains control through suppression of political opposition and freedom of expression. In a dictatorship, individual rights and freedoms are often restricted or non-existent, and decisions are made by the dictator or a small group of individuals without the consent of the people. To sum it all up, the main points are: 1. Exclusivity. The power is in the hand of a limited group of people or one person without limitation. 2. Obstinately. The decision-making is a singular act and does not take the good being of people into account. 3. Limitation. The lack of freedom and suppression of position. 4. Disaffiliation. The dictatorship is often achieved by force and without the people's consent. Now let's look at Iran's political structure. The politics of Iran takes place in the framework of an Islamic theocracy that was formed following the overthrow of Iran's millennia-long monarchy by the 1979 Iranian Islamic Revolution. At first look, it is very apparent that this system of government is not quite something that had existed before, and that it is something entirely new and yet very familiar, so it may not fit into the modern government system we know today. Former Supreme Leader Ruhollah Khomeini developed its animating doctrine, known as guardianship of the jurist, in the years before the Islamic Republic's founding, which has a lot of similar aspects to Plato's idea of the philosopher king. Khomeini posited that a just government was possible if religious scholars sat atop it to ensure consistency with Islamic law. This system was put into place with a constitutional referendum after the 1979 Islamic Revolution, in which the people of Iran voted heavily for the Islamic Republic. The organs of a modern republic, a unicameral legislature or the Majlis, executive led by the president, and judiciary, were enveloped by a clerical system. And these three bodies of power have struggled with each other in the past 44 years, but the one factor that has remained constant in the past 4 decades is the ultimate authority of the supreme leader, the guardian jurist. Iran's constitution designates the office of the head of state, and it's the vast authority under the theory that political authority springs from religious dominion. Article 110 of Iran's constitution outlines the position's major authorities. They include setting national policies and supervising their implementation, as well as commanding the armed forces and appointing military chiefs and the heads of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, Corps, and police. However, the supreme leader's authority is not absolute. He is elected by the Assembly of Experts, a body of 88 directly elected jurists constitutionally mandated with overseeing the supreme leader. In practice, however, there have been little to no subjects of argument between these two in the history of this assembly. There are informal constraints on the supreme leader as well. The position is considered both an arbiter of Iranian politics and a source of emulation, so his direction is meant to both set the course for the republic and also reflect a broader consensus among the elite and intellectuals both in Iran and outside of it. Answering to the supreme leader is the president, who serves as head of government. The president is charged with executing the country's laws and setting policy within parameters set by the supreme leader. He nominates members of the cabinet, who must receive a vote of confidence from the parliament. He also proposes the budget, which must then be passed under the normal legislative process. The current president, Ebrahim Raisi, is the former Chief of Justice who have been elected in June 2021. The Parliament, or Majlis, has 290 seats. Its members are directly elected to 4-year terms by geographic district, with 5 seats set aside for religious minorities. As the unicameral legislature, it has broad lawmaking authority, but another body, the Guardian Council, is charged with determining whether laws it passes are permissible under the Constitution and Islamic precepts. Half of the Council's 12 members are theologians appointed by the Supreme Leader. The other half are legal scholars selected by the Parliament. The Guardian Council also qualifies candidates for the Assembly of Experts, Presidency, and Parliament, giving it great influence in the country. So with everything we have said, now let's compare what we define dictatorship as and Iran's current political structure. Exclusivity. For our first point, we know that it is partly true because most of the power in the country is in the hand of the Supreme Leader. But he has clear limitations on how to practice these rights by the Iran's constitution, which is stated very clearly in Article 110. And there is the Assembly of Experts who are elected by the people, and it's their job to monitor their decisions and make sure that he is leading Iran as a whole in the right direction, have the power to remove him from the position if the need ever arises. But we can also argue that the candidates for this assembly must be approved by the Guardian Council, and half of them are chosen directly by the Ayatollah himself, and he can theoretically exert his influence on them to not let his opposition from entering the election for the assembly, so it's entirely up to you to decide if it's dictatorial or not. Obstinately. As for the second point, as we stated, it's not like that. Sure, the man in charge can overturn almost any decision in the country, but we have yet to see that happen. Ironically, there are examples of decisions happening in Iran that he and his predecessor didn't agree with but let happen because, quote, it was the will of people, and quote, like the Iran-Iraq peace treaty, which Ayatollah Khomeini named the poison chalice, and the Iran-US nuclear deal in 2018 that the current Supreme Leader had expressed his dissatisfaction with it numerous times. Limitation. This may be the strongest argument we have against the Iran's government. To give you a brief rundown, the Constitution allows for Jews, Christians, and people of other faith to practice their religions, but they have to respect and comply with Muslim values and traditions, and it's the same for any tourist and foreigner that visit the country. On the media front, however, things do not look so well for Iran. There is only state television available for most people. You have limited access to foreign-based sites and news agencies like YouTube and BBC. The state monitors news outlets and warns newspapers and magazines of anything that it deems inappropriate. Reporters Without Border organization ranked Iran 173 out of 180 countries in the World Press Freedom Index, and Iran is one of the world's top 10 countries with the lowest human rights freedom, with a score of 4.53 in 2021. But it is important to note that this survey and polls are mostly done by Western researchers with a specific mindset and value system, and some of the things that lower Iran's score in these surveys could be considered cultural heritage, and it is every country's government's responsibility to preserve and uphold the cultural values and pass them on to the next generation. But there is a fine line between that and tyranny, which seems to be lost today. Disaffiliation. Moving to the fourth point, there is not a lot to talk about. The Islamic Republic took form after the Islamic Revolution, and it is without a shadow of a doubt the will of the people of that time. They expressed their determination and willingness with a referendum at the start and with their participation in every election ever since. As to what the new generation wills, there is no reliable source of information for that. The only thing we can relate to is the participation rate of the general election, and the turnout of the most recent one stood at 48.8%, the lowest for a presidential poll in the Islamic Republic's history, and it is an indication of the will of people shifting towards something else. But what will happen in the future, nobody knows. If you want to know more about the changes that are happening in the Middle East, check out our last video. At the end of it, the only thing that we can say with certainty is that Iran is not a democracy nor a dictatorship. It has some element of them both, with a sprinkle of authoritarianism and a framework of a theologian governmentship. But that's only our conclusion. What is yours? Tell us in the comment section.